What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I had to unmute my mic, guys. I'm sorry about that. This is only the 19th episode we've done this. You think I'd figure that out by now. But anyway, we're back and we're here. We had a loaded Week 9 schedule, and for the most part, I think the games lived up to their hype. We entered Week 9 with 16 undefeated teams in total in the state. We enter Week 10 with 14. The only two undefeated teams that lost to other undefeated teams, that being John Curtis losing to Carr and Loyola Prep losing to North DeSoto. So let's jump right into it. We'll start with the Carr-Curtis game. And this was a game going into it. We said that London Paget for Curtis is going to have to throw the football, and that was going to be the way that they were going to have to kind of attack this Carr defense. And he was 12 of 17 with 142 yards and threw 3 touchdowns. It still wasn't enough to beat this Carr team as Carr wins 48-26. Carr got out to a very quick lead. Curtis fought their way back, but Carr just proved too much down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed by John Curtis's offense as far as getting points up on the board. I didn't see them scoring 26 points, or really anybody scoring 26 points in this Carr defense. Like you said, it looks like London Paget. He looked great in the highlights. He had a pretty nice game through the air. In the end, teams that have beaten Curtis over the years, it's always one common factor. It is really aggressive D-line play, which we know Carr brings to the table. They put a lot of pressure on that mesh point, as well as the pitch game and the veer, and Curtis will turn it over if you do that, when they put that much pressure on that mesh point. And so it looks like that's what happened here. Had 2 big fumble returns for touchdowns, one of them being by the biggest guy in Louisiana, I think, Richard Anderson. That was a cool highlight there. But yeah, so it looks like but yeah, when you turn the football over, because JT Curtis said it on Friday Night Football, when you turn it over against this team, you give yourself no chance. So I think it's a lot to take from this game. If they meet in the playoffs, I think Curtis has reasons to be confident in this matchup, because if they don't put the ball on the ground and give Carr those 14 points, this game's a lot closer.
I think you can't underestimate the value of jumping out to that big start against this Curtis team, and you saw them throw the ball a lot in this game. It's not something they typically do. I think the only time we've seen them throw the ball this many times was the game we called, Lance, was the Holy Cross game. So when they're throwing the football, you kind of have them in a spot they don't want to be. This Carr team jumped out ahead early, and it's really hard to catch them when they do jump out ahead. To your point, D-line play, really big factor. Richard Anderson with the fumble recovery for a touchdown. Watching a big guy touchdown never gets old. But this Carr team is going to be difficult for anybody to beat, no matter who you are in the state. I've said it. I think they're one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country. I think they're probably the best team I've ever seen in person. This is a really impressive football team, top to bottom. They can pass it. They really have been running on that rushing attack with Garrison in the backfield, and Johnson can sling it. Has Owens out there, as well as some of those other guys. There's a really impressive team, top to bottom. Extremely fast on defense. Extremely aggressive. So to your point, Lance, 26 points. That's a lot of points that they were managed to score against the defense that didn't give up a single point to Louisiana team until it felt like week. It was like 3 points in one game. So
really, week 6, I think it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good football team. No, there's no other way to say it.
No, it's not. And like you said, Lance, Curtis turns it over 4 times. And when you do that against anybody, it's hard to win. When you do that against Carr, it's impossible to win. And that can't happen. And then you dig yourself into a 21-0 hole. But I think you're right. I wouldn't be shocked if these two teams face each other again in a few weeks. And going into the game, there is no reason after what happened on this Friday night that Curtis shouldn't be, as confident as they were going into this one. If they take care of the football, don't give yourself a 21-0 hole, who knows what happens. But, being able to score this many points against this Carr team, that was impressive. I think that speaks to how good this Carr team is, that they beat John Curtis by 22. And we're talking about how good of a showing John Curtis had. I think that's just how good this Carr team is. Elsewhere, in another matchup of 2 undefeated teams up in North Louisiana, North DeSoto hangs 63 points on Loyola Prep. They win it 63-49. We said this was going to be a shootout going into it. Just running through a few of these numbers. Kenny Thomas, running back for North DeSoto, rushes for 264 yards. Quarterback Luke Delafield throws for 237. There was 3 receivers that had 65 or more receiving yards. Bryce Restovich, quarterback for Loyola Prep,
incredible.
28 for 43 for 403 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also ran for a touchdown. They had 4 different receivers that had at least 1 touchdown catch, and their running back rushed for 189 yards. Just wasn't enough to take over this North DeSoto team.
North DeSoto, we knew coming in is really good because we saw where they went on the road and beat West Monroe earlier in the season. Loyola Prep, we haven't really seen them in a marquee matchup. This is their first big matchup. And so while they didn't get the win, I think we do know now that this team is for real. They put up 49 points. Obviously, they need to be better defensively if they're going to take down a team like the caliber of a North DeSoto. But this game was super back and forth and really just got away late. And so, again, we know that this Loyola Prep team is for real now. I mean, you already said this quarterback matchup. Luke Delafield, hope he brings some of this magic to Demon Land with him. 4 total touchdowns, over 300 total yards. And then the Bryce Restovich kid, you said, I mean, you called it. I think I saw he was at Baylor, visiting Baylor this weekend. So that's the type of football player they have under center too. And so, but there's so many good quarterbacks, a lot of great football teams, and every one of them seems to have a really good quarterback like these 2 teams.
I'd have to assume he's going to get a few more of those calls. He's been incredible all season long in Restovich, but we knew Delafield coming into the season was going to be a guy. Restovich had a big season last year, kind of rolling into this year. And he still has another year. So he has a great opportunity moving forward. Kenny Thomas, guys, he was injured earlier in the year. So comes back with a really strong performance. A lot of people kind of talked about this North DeSoto defense and said, this Loyola Prep team, being able to score this many points, not really going to happen. So Loyola Prep team put up a lot of points and a lot of yards. But unfortunately, when you look at a day and you say we had over 400 yards passing the football, we had a back run for $150, and it still wasn't enough. You probably would have called you a liar, but this North DeSoto team can do it in a number of ways. Both teams fall on opposite brackets, the select side and the non-select side. Loyola Prep is that's a tough bracket. You got St. Charles Catholic, you've got U High, you've got Madison Prep, but I think they're currently
Division
sitting at number 2.
Select is tough, man. Yes.
Yeah,
and not to mention Shaw.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And North DeSoto is a team right now that appears to be the front runner in Division II non-select. But of course, there's a team we're going to talk about later that's really been making some noise as well. I think that's a bracket that feels kind of open, but North DeSoto kind of sits on top. Franklin Parish is a team that could have something to say about that, as a few others. But again, a big matchup. North DeSoto kind of on the tail end of that game kind of put up a few touchdowns and got a little bit of cushion, and ultimately that was the difference in the game.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, Lance, Loyola hasn't been in a marquee game like this all year long, and they showed themselves well. And the fact that they're still up there as the number 2 team in a power ranking going into the playoff, at least going into Week 10, that bodes well for them. But this North DeSoto team, again, maybe the most impressive victory they had when they went on the road and beat West Monroe, a quarterfinal team last year. Coach Dennis Dunn has his team playing for a perfect regular season next week before they jump into the playoffs. But they've got to be, if not the one of the favorites headed into the playoffs in that Division II non-select bracket. Also in 4A, down in Lafayette, one of the more impressive victories of the night. St. Thomas More travels to Turlings Catholic. Turlings Catholic wins 38-14. This was Turlings' first win over St. Thomas More since 2015. These 2 teams have been going at it since the schools have been open. It's a huge rivalry, a big deal down in Lafayette. For whatever reason, over the last 10 years, well, not for whatever reason, St. Thomas More is that good, but Turlings Catholic just couldn't beat STM. And this year, the way that they won the game under Coach Kerrville, you could tell there was a different type of juice. There was a different type of confidence. Their quarterback also had a lot to do with it. Alex Munoz throws for 162 yards, but did most of his damage on his with his leg. 17 carries, 169 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. I watched towards the end of the first half, coming out of halftime in the third quarter. They forced a punt. Turlings did. Munoz got Turlings into the red zone, and on a third, and it's like 3rd and 8, scrambles and ends up scoring a touchdown. They kind of put the game away, but they end up running away. They score 35 unanswered points, I think, at one point to win 38-14 over St. Thomas More.
Yeah, Turlings is always a very good football team. They can't get over the hump with STM. Felt like this was the one that if you're going to, claim a special season, this was the game that becomes the difference between just your same old good Turlings team and this is going to be a special group that the whole town should have their eyes on, right? And so, and to do it the way they did it, it took a lot of they overcame some adversity, right? I mean, you're down 14-0 right out the gates. Certainly people on that sideline know there's a team we've never beaten in 10 years. Here we go again, right? And so for them to go 35 points unanswered in that type of circumstance, I'm sure the home crowd was rocking too. And so really impressive win there for Turlings. Looking at some turnovers as well. They were able to get some big turnovers out of St. Thomas More. That's usually the recipe for disaster of the STM, and giving up a 14-point lead that turns into 35 unanswered. So, unbelievable win there. We knew coming in this would be a great night for one of these programs, and ended up being Turlings.
Yeah, Munoz has really been the catalyst for that team, both running the football and passing the football. I believe he leads the team in both categories, and he's been – his coach, his dad knows football, obviously, a coach at LSU. He definitely has that mentality, and he plays like it. He's a guy who might be flying under the radar with I've said it, like, guys, I don't know how many times we've had this many quarterbacks that you can look around the state and go, man, like, probably have 25, 30 guys you feel like can sign D1 scholarships. A very heavy 27 class, but even the 26 class, really a solid group of quarterbacks. And he kind of flies a bit under the radar, going against one of them, by the way, in Cole Bergeron, who's really been impressive all year. This defense coming up with this performance might be the most impressive thing. So there's the St. Thomas More team that, again, they can score points. They can put up big numbers, and getting over the hump mentally is probably the biggest thing. We talk about momentum being such a big thing in high school football, but even when you're looking at a situation where you just haven't won a game in 3 years, it feels like a monumental task. We talked about Central playing Catholic was it last week? And now they hadn't beaten them in like 3 years, and it was like, or like 4 years. It's like, man, it's been a long time. It's been 10 years. It's a long way to go without a win. And for them to get that taste of victory, really have to be thrilled with the way that they played. And also Coach Corville, undefeated in his first season, really an impressive job with the schedule that he's had to play. We mentioned it last week, having to play East Ascension at home. A lot of juice has kind of flown in that one as well, because you do have that familiarity, but still coming out on the other side unscathed. Really one of the surprise teams that's undefeated, not because we didn't think they'd be good, but with the schedule that they've had to play, some of these matchups they've had, really have to be impressed with the Rebels.
Yeah, it really, again, it's extremely impressive when you think that they fall behind 14-3. And then after that second touchdown drive for STM, the Sterling defense forces 3 punts, gets 3 interceptions, and really just kind of ran away with the game. And when you look at the series history, I think you're right, Jason. The biggest hurdle coming in was the mental hurdle. It wasn't that they physically couldn't do it or they weren't talented enough or coached well enough. Just mentally, they had to get past it. They did. And I think Coach Kerrville even said it, talked about taking the next step as a program. It felt like they had to win this game against this team to feel like they've arrived as a program, and they've absolutely done that here in his first season.
Well, Cass, you've seen it up close. I mean, you've seen it.
Mm-hmm. There were, and I can remember, this was in 21. We were playing with a backup quarterback, 2 sophomores. When I say we, I was coaching at St. Thomas More, and I think we were down at some point in the middle of the third quarter. Like, there was no reason for us to win the game, and we ended up winning overtime. And it was just and that wasn't the only game that's happened like that. And it was just that's so big for Turlings to go and win that. Also, wouldn't shock me if these two teams face each other in the playoffs, and that would be juicy. that would be some exciting stuff for sure to see them play again in a few weeks. We'll stay in Lafayette. Go ahead.
It is important to note, though, guys, that Terwin
they're both in Division I.
Yeah, they're both in Division I Select, so they could see each other in. But again, 4A teams playing in Division I Select.
It makes sense, right?
I'll be the one to say, like, can we please get this figured out? But, what do we know? But before we go on, make sure to follow, like, share, subscribe. Again, we appreciate everybody watching and supporting the show. Again, we love doing it. We love being here for you guys. But, again, please share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Yeah,
the 4A Division I, that could be another story for another day. But both of those teams are in Division I Select. We'll stay in the Lafayette area. This game actually took place on Thursday. Maybe the game of the weekend, even though it seemed like a week ago. But Lafayette Christian host Evangel in a non-district matchup. LCA wins 24-22. This was a game going into it with both of these offenses, with Braylon Walker at LCA, Pop Houston for Evangel. We thought might be high scoring. It wasn't high scoring, but it did not lack any big plays. Pop Houston showed why he's one of the best players, not just in the state, but in the country with a few of the plays that he made. He actually got tackled and fumbled on the 1-inch line to end the game with 30 seconds left, in which LCA recovers the fumble, and they go on to win 24-22. Caden Bellard for LCA rushed for 76 yards on 18 carries. Braylon Walker, 2 rushing touchdowns and 89 rushing yards. Peyton Houston, again, this LCA defense holds him to 155 passing yards and 1 touchdown. He did have an absolutely unbelievable 61-yard rushing touchdown, and then that scramble late. But defenses kind of controlled the game, but it didn't make it any less exciting.
Yeah, shout out to these defenses. LCA's Luke Green, the safety, UL commit, 10 tackles. He's the guy that made the huge hit at the goal line that you talked about, forcing the fumble. But man, these defenses, that's the most impressive thing that I took away from this game is just being able to hold. These are maybe the 2 best quarterbacks in Louisiana. Probably a guy in Baton Rouge at Dunham might have something to say about that. But either way, these are 2 electric offenses, and to see this game being this low of a score is really impressive. Another point that Jason made over the weekend, this LCA team has the most power points in Louisiana, which is crazy because they have a loss. Like mathematically, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's why we talk about them on every week, because they play that strong of a schedule that they're able to, even with a loss, still have the most power points in Louisiana. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I know, Cash, you're a little bit more probably dug into the PowerPoint system with being a baseball coach, but I don't know. This whole LCA season is really mind-blowing to me.
Well, they get those play-up points. So by playing teams of higher classifications, but I mean that's the reason why. Because and there's a reason why we're talking about them weekly, because they're playing those marquee matchups week in and week out. They're constantly testing themselves, and for them to come out of this game with another win just goes to show they appear to be the lead horse in Division III Select. This team is really good. Evangel is again. This loss doesn't diminish what they've been able to do this season. Their only 2 losses, guys, are to Neville and LCA. Like this is
on the last play of the game, essentially, both of them.
Right,
yeah,
on
the road, and both were on the road.
Yeah. So if they can, and again, that's a tough place to play in Evangel. I'm not sure where they currently sit in the power ratings, but as we know, guys, like now it's a big difference, right? Because what happens is you can essentially play at home the entire time. If you get in the right spot and you're the higher seed, then you can play the entire time the playoffs at home. So I think LCA is in position to be doing that. They've been impressive week in and week out. Quarterback play was exceptional as always. And, this is a team that just finds ways to win, regardless who they're playing. Beat Rummel earlier in a crazy game, beat Evangel Thursday. It's really going to take a massive effort from somebody to knock off this Knights football team.
I think that Evangel was averaging around 60 points a game, and they came over 22 against LCA. Is incredible.
Yes, it is. Well, I think what both teams can take out of this. Evangel, Jason, is at 12 right now in Division I Select playoff bracket. But even if you're Evangel, You lose the game, but you go on the road to play arguably the best team in the state, and your defense holds them to 24 points. Like, yes, you'd like to see more out of your offense, but that can be encouraging for them moving forward. And even looking at this bracket, especially where they're at, like they would match up with, as it stands right now, they'd match up either Holy Cross or Pineville in the first round, and then they're playing a Tioga team in the second round. Like there's a path there for them to move forward and make some noise in the playoffs, but you can come out of this encouraged. And if you're LCA, again, take one crazy odd night on the West Bank out of it, and this team, it might be the most impressive team in the state. It's super impressive what they've done and what that coaching staff has done all year long. And they've done it with offense, they've done it with defense, they've done it, coming back, they've kind of, running away and hiding from people. It's been super, super impressive.
You mentioned Evangel Tioga, guys. That would make Evangel feel right at home. That's another high-powered offense. Curvin Johnson, new LSU commit. That would be a fun one to watch. That'd be a fun one to watch.
No doubt. Also, a fun one to watch that happened in the Baton Rouge area. Zachary hosts Central. Central wins 35-33. And it's starting to feel like, at least in the last 2 weeks, that this Central team is the Central team that we saw in the playoffs last year. They get 2 big victories back-to-back. This game close, comes down to a late pass breakup with Central's defense stepping up and making a play, keeping Zachary out of the end zone. At quarterback, Max Gassiat throws for 108 yards, 1 touchdown, also ran for a touchdown and 62 yards. The Central team starts to look like they're coming into form as we hit the stretch run of the season.
Yeah, it's crazy to think we had some doubts about the Central team, and here they are at 7-2, looking to finish the season strong, and I'm sure nobody wants to face this team in the playoffs, so they are definitely playing right at the right time, still giving up a good bit of points, but we know how good Zachary is on offense as well. So, yeah, heck of a win by these guys. Looks like they did it. The defense came through, and they needed them to come through. They also came out with a big special teams play. Marvin Joseph, 94-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Those type of explosive special teams plays usually the difference in a close matchup like this.
Yeah, and guys, I know they were a bit shorthanded too. They had some injuries, so to be shorthanded to play Zachary on the road and win that game, I mean, there's nothing more you could ask for, and that's as big of a win as they've had all year. And again, right time of the season. If you're going to get hot, you'd rather get hot late than get hot early. So I think this Central team, again, has good potential here to make a run. Division I non-select has just a ton of teams, though. Like a ton of teams that you feel like have potential to win the whole thing. And this Central team is in the mix. And guys, like there's only a few divisions we really look at and you say there's one clear front runner. So to be in the mix is a statement enough, but I think Central hitting their stride at the right point in the season. Again, able to play 2 quarterbacks as well. Got 2 guys that can sling it in Clayton and Gassiat as well. So again, it'll be fun to see them moving forward with one more game in district play and then off to the playoffs.
Yeah, and you mentioned not wanting to see these guys in the playoffs, and it kind of has seemed like we might have been down on Central a little bit just because maybe the expectations just were way up there. They're 5th right now in the power rankings. Mm-hmm. They're 7-2. They're 5th in the power rankings. No one wants to see these guys, and that's a coaching staff. Well, the players themselves, they won the state championship last year, but it's a coaching staff with Coach Semino. He's been there and done that at Catholic. He's been there and done it at Central. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to have their team ready to play their best football at this time of the year. And it seems like that's kind of what's going on right now at Central. Back up in North Louisiana in District 2, 5A, at West Monroe, Neville traveled across town to face the Rebels at Rebel Stadium. Neville comes away with a 22-19 victory. This was a great game to watch. I watched the majority of it. On Friday night, Parker Robinson for Neville, extremely impressive every time you watch him play. The control that he has of that offense, he's able to do it both with his arm and with his legs. kind of got the ball out to his receivers. Jarvis Blackman and Desi Bird each had a touchdown reception. On the West Monroe side, Jason, I thought about you watching the game. You were talking about how they were going to have to get creative to get Trez Davis the football. They threw a halfback pass to him, and he catches a touchdown pass in an unconventional way. That Neville defense, though, steps up big at the end of the game, and this is a huge. This can't be understated how big of a game and win this was for Neville on the road at West Monroe to win 22-19.
It's two big wins that stood out to me this weekend. This was one of them. I think we'll get to the other one later on, but for Neville to have such an emotional win over Ouachita the week before, going on the road to the hot West Monroe and beating West Monroe just seemed like a really tall task. And so I'm very, very impressed by Neville going on the road and getting it done. Coach Collins, defensive guy, when he was on the show and I asked him about how many points that district gives up, you can tell he almost kind of took it personal. And so he came out clearly with a great defensive game plan. Looks like he pretty much shut down this West Monroe running game that's been so good all season long. Trez Davis got 2 touchdowns. You can only do so much. I mean, Coach Collins even mentioned how he's just impossible to really deal with out there. And so, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, they really shut down this offense. They had to go to a gimmick play even to get a second touchdown.
Guys, there's a 4-way tie. There's a 4-way tie in this district.
So we're really surprised. Like, that's what this district is, dude. It's so good. It feels like every team is so good.
And by the way, one of those teams, we're going to talk about that game later, but one of those teams sitting at 0-4 has been in every single game that they played.
Yep.
So, this is the type of district that it is. Alexandria, West Monroe, Ruston, and Neville. They feel so evenly matched. And again, it's going to come down to situations and circumstances and who's going to be the district champion next week. I mean, it speaks to the depth and level of this district. And that's why we're constantly leading the show with them and talking about pretty much every matchup, it feels like, in this district. Neville's defense, and I've said it before, they're very physical. Coach Collins and his staff do a great job mixing things up on defense. They can give exotic looks, but then they can just, they can hit you. They can hit you in the mouth and knock the football loose. West Monroe's a physical team, right? We know that they do have Davis, and they can pass the football, but really their big thing is, like, we're going to run the football, and when we find spots and opportunities, we're going to hit you with the pass. So, I mean, this Neville team just finding a way to flip the script from what we were talking about a few weeks ago, struggling against onside kick, special teams maybe being an issue, just not able to get the job done. They've done it in a big way 2 consecutive weeks. So
the defense is unbelievable. Like, that's the story. When you can hold Christian Ponte in this offense of the Rebels and on the road, and like you said, Jason, talking about the 4-way tie, this district is deep, obviously, and all the teams, there's a 6-team district, but the 4 that are tied for first, this probably sounds like Captain Obvious, they've separated themselves from the rest of the district. Like, Ouachita, we thought might have been up in that mix. Ouachita has faced all 4 of those teams 4 straight weeks and lost 4 straight weeks. So these 4, speaking of Neville, West Monroe, Ash, and Ruston, and they all play each other next week. So that's going to be interesting.
Has there been we talk about some of these teams, but man, I don't know if there's many teams like outside of Ouachita Parrott, like who else has played a schedule like that? Like having to play those 4 teams in a row. Maybe LCA is in the conversation. Maybe. Like those are 4 really tough games to play back to back to back to back.
Yeah, that's the bad luck of the draw in that district playing those 4 teams back to back to back. So that we go from one neighborhood city rivalry to another down in your neck of the woods, Jason, down in the river parishes. Hahnville hosts Destrehan. Destrehan comes in and wins 49-28. Outside of the turnovers and special teams miscues by Hahnville, the story of the night's got to be Malachi Dabney. 26 carries, 242 yards, 7 touchdowns. And this is an offense that also has Jackson Fields and Jabari Mack playing quarterback and receiver. And so if you're Hahnville, you're looking – if you said that Jackson Fields was going to be 6 of 13 for 90 yards and Jabari Mack was going to have 3 catches for 61 yards, you're thinking, absolutely, we're going to win the game. Malachi Dabney rushes for 242 yards and 7 touchdowns. Super impressive for this Destrehan team to do that to Honville.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Who would have thought Jackson Fields, one of the best quarterbacks in our city, he only completes 6 passes, but he didn't need to. But this is Dabney. Dabney ran for 6 touchdowns. That was 2 weeks ago, I believe, when he ran for 6 touchdowns. They only
happens so, Lance, it happens so often. Like, who can keep track anymore? I mean, seriously, he's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, how many I love how many Jason probably knows, but how many touchdowns does this guy have?
I don't know. I don't know that one. I don't know.
All unbelievable.
Like
but yeah, I mean, I thought this one kind of went as expected. I thought Hornville's playing, they're having a great season. Hornville has a great junior class in both football and baseball. So I think this team is a year ahead. Yeah, Cass, I wouldn't schedule them in baseball maybe in the next 2 years.
I'll keep them up. They're not on this year. So
they got 2 monsters. Anyway. But yeah, I think this Hornville team is really good. They're a year ahead. This is a team that I think they'll win a playoff game, but I look for this rivalry to flip next year, I think.
It's a bold prediction. We look forward to seeing how
Write
they get next year. But look, this Destrehan team's reeled off 6 straight. No real surprise when you see they just really have appeared to be a step ahead of the entire district. I mean, there's some good teams in there, right? We've seen Terrebonne. They're going to have a big matchup next week from maybe an unsuspected contender coming into the season. We'll talk about later, but beat Terrebonne earlier in the season that we thought would be a really tough one. I think when you look at this offense, and again, I keep wanting to relay all the names because their receiver room is loaded. Like, everybody's going to look at Mac, but Jalen Ash is the real deal. He is an incredible target along with Kai Williams, who's a really solid player as well. I know Ash has another year, and I believe Williams does as well. But I think the story's got to be, guys, this offensive line's clearly getting the job done as well. For your running back to have 6 touchdowns in multiple games, and we know Dabney runs like a freight train. We know that he's really quick, but just the offensive line is clearly getting the job done. Also on the other side of the football, the defense, again, gave up 28 points, but there's a Hornville team that's had success on offense throughout the season in a game at home in a rivalry, and they still found a way to pull away late. So another win for Destrehan, still keeping himself within that talking point of the wide open bracket that is Division I non-select.
Yeah, Destrehan's up there, right up there. They're at 6 right now, right in front of West Monroe. That bracket is not just wide open, but it's deep as well. And that sets up, and I know you teased it a little bit, and essentially a district championship game for these guys next week with the Thibodeau Tigers, who I don't think anyone, none that I've heard, would predict that they'd be in the position they're in right now. So big game again for Destrehan next week. We go from talking about Destrehan, who wrapped up at least a share of the district title, and we'll move to St. Paul's, who wrapped up a district title for the 3rd straight year in District 6-5A. They beat Mandeville 31-24. It's a back and forth game all night long, tied at 10 at halftime, tied at 17 entering the 4th quarter. St. Paul scores 14 unanswered to start the 4th quarter and ends up winning 31-24. Cody Corrales for the Wolves, 23 carries, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown. This is his 9th straight 100-yard rushing game, which is extremely impressive. It's not just him. It's that offensive line is really good for St. Paul's. They got their fullback back. Like, it seems like we're talking about a mid-1990s I formation team, but they're going to run it right at you. Kind of maybe how we expected it to go, but Mandeville still comes away extremely impressive when you continue to think that they have a 14-year-old that's playing quarterback for them. Crew Calora, freshman quarterback, 22 of 26, threw for 230 yards. He did throw an interception. He also ran the ball for 21 times for 88 yards. So they're putting the whole offense on him, and I know they lose the game. Still extremely impressive by the skipper team to lose 31-24.
Exactly what I was thinking. If there was ever an impressive loss, I think this is it for Mandeville. This feels like an old, mature, battle-tested St. Paul's team. I know there's a younger team from Mandeville. Obviously, they lost their quarterback, but if you're a Mandeville Mandeville fan, but you got to be excited about this Crew Calora kid to be a freshman, and they're still he's putting up 300 total yards of offense and playing St. Paul's this tight. I mean, this is you don't want to celebrate losing, but if you ever were going to celebrate a loss, it feels like this would be the one for Mandeville. This is a pretty impressive loss, and St. Paul's district will forever go through them until kind of dethroned, right?
And credit where credit's due. I've talked about the guys on the St. Paul's defense. They've got some real playmakers. Weston Post at linebacker, Aiden Brooks, who's a guy that might not get his name called as much, although I know he's making his noise. Guys, he had an interception and a forced fumble, both turned into points, and that's the difference in the game. So 14 points off of turnovers makes a big difference when you're playing a crosstown team in a big matchup like this. But to both y'all's point, like Calora has been impressive. There's no doubt about it. To start, and here's the thing too. I've gone back to it a few times. His first official high school start was on the road against Madison Prep. So to continue to maintain composure and not get, and they lost the game, but I think he had a decent game. But again, to start the season out with that opponent as your first official start in high school, and to still stay composed, playing an experienced St. Paul's defense and the half night that he hit, it just speaks to the volumes of the type of player that he is and has potential to be in the future.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, you don't want to sit here and be happy for a loss or any of that, but that was an impressive performance. And it's really been, although up and down because of the injuries they've dealt with, the way they navigated it, it's been impressive for Mandeville. They've got a chance they have Fontainebleau next week, so they to win that game, kind of get some momentum headed into the playoffs. And look, this is a program, they're used to making deep runs in the playoffs. It's almost like every 2 to 3 years you look up and Mandeville's a quarterfinal or semifinal team. Who's to say they can't do that again? And maybe no one may be expecting it from them, but it could happen. And then on the St. Paul side again, I think Lance, you said it, just an old, mature team that knows how to handle their business, and they did so again behind running back Cody Corrales. He's been extremely impressive all year long. You mentioned Madison Prep, Jason. We'll go to their game. They went to U-High. U-High wins 14-8. Madison Prep came into the game averaging 44 points a game. U-High did not allow them to score a touchdown. The only touchdown Madison Prep scores was on a punt return by their quarterback. But this defense for U-High, extremely impressive. They actually scored a pick six to win the game in the fourth quarter. U-High, kind of much like LCA, a smaller school with extremely talented athletes, a really good coaching staff. They're scheduled. They always schedule up. They were ready for this game. This is a very impressive victory for this U-High team.
Yeah, sloppy-looking game. A lot going on. Punt return for a touchdown, interception return for a touchdown, fumbles, some penalties. But there was one constant that overrides all of it, and it was ULab's defense, right? And so, this is really impressive. Madison Prep got out to a lead with their punt return touchdown by their quarterback. But yeah, ULab. So ULab and LCA, are they in the same?
No. So division
D2, right?
U-High is in
ULab. U-High is in D2, and LCA is in D3.
Division 3.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I mean, this ULab team, if you hold a Madison Prep 8 points and giving up 0 offensive touchdowns, they're going to be a force as expected in the playoffs.
We haven't gotten a chance to break down many U-High matchups over the course of the season.
Right.
But if there is a team in Division 2 that you could argue would maybe have a little bit of an edge, it feels like U-High is that team. They didn't get a chance to compete in the playoffs last season. I think you're kind of seeing some of that energy come out this year. Arguably, a lot of people say best player in the state. A lot of people say best player in the country in Lamar Brown. Mason Smith is another big guy up front for them. They have playmakers all over the field. The wide receiver Dixon is really an impressive guy as well. They got a really solid running back as well. I'm saying one. Like, there's only one guy on this team. Like, they're just top to bottom a loaded squad. I know Madison Prep, and also a super talented team. and they've played their fair share of higher opponents as well. We just talked about them playing Mandeville. I think both of these teams are going to be battle tested going into the playoffs, and I think ultimately that's why you schedule the way that these teams do. That's why you play elite competition to know what you have and what adjustments to make. I think both of these teams, this could be a game that we see in the Dome. This is very easily a team this is very easily a matchup that we could see a repeat from district play in the Superdome, and it wouldn't shock me. And to your point about quarterback, man, he plays quarterback, running back, wide receiver. I'm not sure if he leads the team in receiving yards, but he
drove the bus to the game too.
I mean, he might as well have. Like he can do it all. But again, two really fun teams, really big physical teams at that. I know Madison Prep got a guy up front, guys. He's 6'8", 340. Like he's getting some attention, obviously, but he's a junior, I think. So both these teams got big physical guys, and it's fun to see it when two prolific offenses flip the script and go defense. Kind of similar to that LCA Evangel matchup we were talking about.
Yeah, no, really impressive. And that U-High defense, man, is so good. And that coaching staff, that's just a good football program. That is a good football program. And so is Madison Prep. We mentioned we could see this game in the Dome. Madison Prep, we mentioned it Tuesday. They were, 8 yards away from being in the Dome last year. So they expect to be right back in that same position as they head into the playoffs this year.
Before we go forward, follow, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure, again, we appreciate everybody watching, tuning in. Please follow, share, like, subscribe. Again, we love doing it. We love being here with you guys. But again, if you could give us a like, share, subscribe, we'd appreciate it.
We will go down into New Orleans, down in District 10, 2A, Newman and Country Day. Newman wins 42-14. Newman seems to have seems to have figured some things out. Rough start to the season, like we mentioned, with a new coaching staff, losing some key players. Jake Randall, 6 total touchdowns and over 400 yards. Tulane is getting a great football player in him. It's not just he can do a little bit of everything. He can run. He's physical. He obviously plays some quarterback for Newman. He is a really good football player. Newman holds his Country Day offense to 14 points. That's a season low for them. Newman as a program, it's one that everyone keeps. It's like, yeah, but they haven't won the state championship, or yeah, but they haven't been to the Superdome. Maybe this might be the year. You hate to just sit there and talk about that being the end-all, be-all, because there's so much more that goes into it. But they seem to start playing a lot better here these last few weeks headed into the playoffs. They might have figured some things out that can help them have that run to the Dome.
Hopefully the city is really starting to learn more about Jake Randall. This kid is unbelievable. He is so strong. He's physical. He's all of 6 foot, 195. And when he breaks away, he had a bunch of explosive runs in this game. When he breaks away, he is faster than anyone. I mean, it's really impressive. And so, I didn't think he really got enough love over the last couple of years. He's a great running back in their system, but Newman had so many good players at other spots that you didn't really hear a whole lot about Jake. But Jake is an unbelievable football player. He threw for 4 touchdowns. This is a guy that's never played quarterback. The first time he took a snap at quarterback was literally 7 days before the first game. That's when they decided to move him to quarterback. Here we are, week 9. He throws 4 touchdowns and runs for a couple as well. And so he's super impressive. But this Newman team, they got some really good players. Henry Jackson in the middle. Yep. He is a big, big kid. He's all of 6'3", over 300 pounds. He could play for anybody. I believe he's going to Cornell. He's a senior. They got George Loop on the perimeter. He has Ivy League offers. I think he's committed to one of the Harvards or one of those, but he's got some offers. Yeah. You know it, or I'm trying.
I think it's Dartmouth. Is it Dartmouth?
I don't know.
It's an Ivy League school.
Yeah, he's committed to one, and he's got a few offers. But anyway, Hendricks Hill is another one at receiver. So this Newman team, I thought going into this, I kind of had a feeling it might go this way simply because when it comes down to matchups, this Newman team, they have the perimeter players to match up with really just about anybody, especially in the smaller schools. They're really good defensively on the perimeters with Jack Falgoose, Archie Kasbarian. Those guys, when the ball gets tipped in the air, it somehow lands in Jack Falgoose's hands. So it's almost every game I go to, he has a fumble recovery or an interception. And so they've got good ball players on the perimeter. And so Yeah, this is a Newman team that's 5 straight. Coach Weiss really has them headed in the right direction. I think there was some concern early, but it was just a matter of new head coach, new quarterback, had to figure out how to really use all these players.
And you were right. Yeah, you had one I didn't, and I've got pretty much everybody in the state pegged. It was Dartmouth, so it is Dartmouth's commitment. This you mentioned Hendricks Hill. Hendricks Hill has I know he has an offer to Washington. I think he has an offer to Baylor. He's
good looking player.
Former LSU star Eric Hill's son, and super athletic guy. But to your point about kind of getting lost in the shuffle, I mean, I don't know. He only had Arch Manning. He only had Eli Friend. Right. And Eli Friend might kind of got under-recognized too. Yep. I mean, he ran that offense incredibly. And look, his skill set opened up that Newman offense a lot more than Arch's did. Now, again, I'm not saying like from a passing standpoint, but his ability to run, there was a ton of wrinkles in that offense I got to see last year. And I called a few of their games that I didn't see the year before. This Country Day team is, again, really electric offense. So speaking to the defensive playmaking that this Newman team has, again, holding them to 14 points with 2 really stud wide receivers as well, in McAllister and Brewer. Like, this is a good Newman team, and they do fall into that sneaky good, I would say. Because when you look at Division I and Division II, you're like, man, but Division III non-select is sneaky good as well. And I'm saying sneaky good when you've got, a Catholic New Iberia, LCA, those guys in there, Calvary Baptist. So it might be one of the deeper, I would say, divisions to kind of figure out on where they'll go. But again, we'll see if Newman can continue to shed their skin, if you will, from the early part of the season. Has really seemed to find himself. We'll know next week, though. They're going to play South Plaquemine, and that'll tell you everything you need to know about both of these teams.
Yeah, and when you look back to the beginning of the year in Newman, you knew there was going to be some growing pains coming in, just because it's simply a change in coaching staff, and anytime it happens, like, it's new. So they lose their first 2 games, then they go into a bye week, and you don't hear about them, and then they play 2 games. There's another bye week, and you just kind of forget about them, and you look up here and it's week 9, and you're like, well, they're now 5-2, heading into a big game with South Plaque, and which they get a victory there. Like, they're just right back to where they always been, which is, in the running to make a deep playoff run. So it'd be interesting to follow this team moving forward. Let's stay in that part of the state, Jason. We'll go to the West Bank, where this was maybe the shocker of the night. Not so much that we didn't think Belle Chase could win, but I think when you look at the score and realize that they shut Shaw out, I think that jumps out of the page. But Belle Chase beats Shaw 14-0. It is Belle Chase's first win over Shaw since 2019. This is a Belle Chase team, lost their first game of the season last week to St. Charles. We were interested in how they would bounce back. We got our answer. Belle Chase wins 14-0.
Yeah, I've been high on this Belle Chase team for a while. We worked with them in the offseason, so I know their coaches and players pretty well. And I knew coming into this season, they are old. They are bunch of seniors. Last year, they made a nice little run in the playoffs with hardly any seniors, like terribly small senior class last year. They did it all with sophomores and juniors. And so I was not surprised that this team has gotten off to the start that they did this season. Now, their schedule wasn't great. Another team that just didn't really have any marquee matchups until last week, where it was like, we're going to find out if they're for real against St. Charles Catholic. I really think that they just got off to a slow start against St. Charles Catholic for that reason. Like, they hadn't seen a really good football team like St. Charles Catholic. And so going into this one, now they are a little bit more battle tested. They came a little bit more ready for Shaw, I'm sure. And again, like I mentioned on the preview show, this is a motivated – when you got an old team, senior-led, crosstown rivalry, like that you're going to get their very, very best. And it looks like their defense certainly brought their very, very best, shutting out this Shaw team. I mean, to really think about, like, Shaw beat LCA. Yeah. Like when you saw and it's not always just – you can't really just compare scores like that. But they beat LCA, and then Belle Chase shuts them out. I mean – I think this Belle Chase team is really good. I think Amari Ambrose, he obviously didn't have his best game in this one, but I know he's really good. He's a 3-year starter, I believe, senior. So yeah, I'm on this Bell Chase team, and that division that they're in is pretty wide open too.
Not to mention really physical defensive lineman in Bartholomew. Like he's a big, physical, nasty defensive lineman, and he gets after it. Shaw again clearly struggled to move the football. 5 for 14 passing, 50 yards passing the football. I think that speaks to the pressure that they were able to put on him, and that defense flies the football. Like their physical defense. We know their offense likes to play ball control and run the football and ground it out. And again, I went to St. Charles Catholic. We see that week in and week out from the Comets team, and it works. And of course, it was pretty fun to see them go at it just a week ago. But again, very similar sentiment. So now you have a Bell Chase team that's feeling confident. I believe next week they play Kenner Discovery. I'm not positive, but they're going to go into the playoffs feeling pretty good about themselves. Again, I think we might take a moment at the end of this to kind of take a scan of some power ratings to kind of see where some teams sit, because again, this Bell Chase team is in that Division II non-select bracket. It feels kind of open. We know we've talked about North DeSoto. I've talked about Franklin Parish a bit, and there's some other teams in there, but Bell Chase feels like they're in that conversation. They feel like they could absolutely make a run and find themselves in the Superdome.
Yeah, and you mentioned physical ball control. They held the ball for the last 9 minutes and 18 seconds and went on a 62-yard drive that ended the game with Bell Chase holding the football. If you could do that against this Shaw team, that's got everybody's attention. And that's, that they do. They have the Swamp Owls next week in week 10 before making their trek in the playoffs. But man, this is back-to-back weeks for Bell Chase. I know they lost the game last week, but maybe as impressive as a 2-week stretch simply because they did lose last week. And how are they going to answer the bell? They answered it exactly the way a championship team would do so. Out in the Class 1A, Jason, this is your team here. Sacred Heart travels to Point Coupee, Catholic of Point Coupee. They've been extremely impressive all year long. Point Coupee wins 34-24, scoring 34 points in the Sacred Heart defense. That's as impressive as any feat that we've seen on the year. They come in with 191 yards rushing on the ground from Micah Nippy. Jude Morrison completes passes for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, I go back to week 3, I think, when we saw him. Jude Morrison, as good of a football player, on that level as you will see, and he did a good job for this Hornets team. They moved to 7-2. Sacred Heart falls to 6-3.
Yeah, 2 teams that came in with the same record. It was very interesting to see, at this point in the season, who's going to be real contenders in the playoffs. It looks like this score was actually probably bigger than the final.
Yeah.
Looks like Sacred Heart scored a little bit late. And so this Catholic Point Coupee team, this will be a fun team to follow in the playoffs.
The Hornets always seem to be one of those teams in Catholic Point Coupee. Like they're always in the conversation. It'd be fun to see if they can make that run. And they can make that push. I think there's a few teams, even within this district, that feel like they have a say in who's going to win Division IV non-select. You have Catholic Point Coupee, you have Sacred Heart, you have Hamilton Christian, I believe, is in this division, is in this district as well. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but But again, I know that they're in a solid district regardless, and that this. Jude Morrison's been there for what feels like forever. And he's played all over the field. So he's got over 100 career touchdowns. He led the team in interceptions earlier in his career when he was a younger player. He's their Mr. Everything kind of guy. He's an incredible athlete. And if he's rolling and this offense is able to move the football, running the football as well, I think they're going to be a hard team to beat or match offensively.
Jason, you ever been to Catholic Point Coupee?
I've not. Maybe, you know what? I think when I was like in middle school, we played them. Like that was a long time ago.
Me and Cass went. Me and Cass have been there.
We've
Came away with a big win against Catholic Point Coupee, St. Mary's Tigers. About 9 days after Katrina.
We beat the Hornets.
It's a fact, yeah.
That
right
is
after Katrina.
That
Yep.
is a fact. We didn't even
I knew
know
some-
anybody's name on the team. We just showed up. And
We knew some of the plays. I caught a touchdown on the first drive.
it was
Cass, how
that
many times did you have to repeat your name before people knew it was Cass? I can imagine. Like people be like, that guy. Him over, like Lance easy to remember. Cass. I probably have a little bit of trouble remembering that one.
I don't know, but I remember that night vividly. Who do we played Hamilton Christian was the next week.
Yep.
St. Edmunds is in that district, Jason.
Yeah, that's what it is. And they're a bigger team. They're also they beat Catholic Point Capilla, I believe it was last week for the first time in like
52-50.
Yeah, look, it was an overtime game. They beat them, and I think it was like the first time in like 9 years last week. So St. Edmunds, Catholic Point Capilla, Sacred Heart. I think those are three teams that could definitely make some noise in that bracket.
Where anywhere else particular? You want to go to Thibodaux?
Yes, we got to go to Thibodaux.
And talk about Thibodaux defeating Terrebonne 27-21. This is unless y'all know something that I don't, I wasn't expecting Thibodaux to be 8-1 at this point in the season. As impressive as any game.
I don't have anything against Thibodaux, but I was a little heartbroken by this one just because we've been so high on this terrible football team, the offensive line. Quincy Adams, I feel like we talk about these guys every week, and so I was surprised to see this one.
Well, we've been talking about Bear Adams, Quincy Adams all season. What about Camian Adams? 251 yards rushing for the Tigers and 3 touchdowns. This Thibodaux team is not one that's clearly jumped off the page over the course of the year, maybe because coming into the season, the expectations weren't as high as maybe a Terrebonne, but clearly has turned things around from just a year ago. And a lot of that has to do with Coach Lowell Narcisse, again, who was an incredible player at St. James. Got to see him play in the Superdome up close, got to see him play in River Parishes. Again, a bunch of times. Of course, went to LSU, went to UTSA, and found a lot of success last year at Ascension Catholic. And he's clearly carried that and parlayed it over into a really impressive season at Thibodaux. This team is clearly feeling confident. They're going to need to continue feeling confident because they're going to have a big test next week when they play Destrehan, and that one might be one of the biggest games of the night, if not the biggest game of the night. Yeah,
and that's a good point. You talking about them continuing to be confident. Their only loss this year is to Hahnville. Their schedule outside of that, nothing really stands out. I think they kind of made the schedule rightfully so with kind of where they were as a program. And it's almost like no matter what happens next week against Destrehan, flush it and move on to the playoffs. Like if they're able to do that and come out of there healthy, and who knows, like go give Destrehan a game. Who knows? But what Coach Narcisse did last year at Ascension, was it Catholic or Christian?
Catholic. Christian is the Lions. Christian was Rohan Davies' team.
Okay. So what he did last year and the year before, like they put up a lot of points. They kind of beat people pretty good, and it's easy to point to that and say, well, they just had better players than all the other 1A schools. But now you see him doing at Thibodaux. Like this guy knows what he's doing. This guy knows what he's doing, and he's in a tough district. So good to see Thibodaux and Coach Narcisse. They're playing for a district championship next week against Destrehan, so it should be a fun one to follow.
And played under Dwayne Jenkins. I believe I'm not sure if he coached with him off the top of my head, but that's a heck of a guy to learn from.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing over there at now at Letcher. He was at St. James.
Yes.
Anywhere else? No.
Off the top, those Southside Karen Crow guys. Look, the fact that Southside won is not a shock. But what is a shock is for them to drop a 70 spot on this Karen Crow defense. Just really impressive performance for Southside. I know their quarterback had a heck of a day. I can't find the stat line at the moment, but this is a Southside team. I said, came into the season with a ton of expectations, and they're kind of living up to it. So Parker Deese had 12 carries, 297 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Justin Williams, 145 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. And Colin Francois had 8 carries, 107 yards. So three guys for rushing for over 100 yards. This is a really impressive performance against the Karen Crow team that many would argue has the best athlete in the state in Chance Babineau. In terms of can play both sides of the ball, does it excellent. One of the leading, if not the leading receiver in the state. Also really impressive defensive back. But guys, they were down early in this game.
Yeah, they were down 14-0.
Down 14-0 came back and scored 70. Yep. Just really impressed with the Sharks.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
I was going to go show some love to a couple of our guest coaches from earlier in the season. Coach Nick Monica found a way to get another win. They just continue to find ways to win. It's with a really good defense. They forced turnovers. They also had a big kickoff return touchdown. Their offense was struggling. He has officially made the switch, it looks like. Nathaniel Singleton, who was the starting receiver, he started the game at quarterback. We already know how good their running backs are. And so, Rummel found a way to win. It wasn't pretty, but they found a way to win. I think it was 21-17. Is it 27-17? I think it might have been closer.
I think I might have botched the score on that one.
Either way, it was close. Yeah, it was a close game. But good for them. They're at 6-3 now. And then St. Aug, me and Jason had St. Aug, Coach Valdez. Holy Cross made them work for it. I'm going to tell you that much. This was a great game. Holy Cross actually had the ball late in the game. Truly took it to the last second of this game. But in the end, St. Aug was just a little bit too good. But Sean Coulon is super impressive. I mean, he's really good at football. Like, he is not your traditional quarterback. It's more of like, man, every time Coach Connors, the defense coordinator for Holy Cross, every time his X's and O's were on point, Coulon figured out a way to pull it down. He ran for a bunch of yards. He'd pull it down. He'd pull it down when the pocket would break down and keep his eyes downfield. They had a big 3rd and 16 play that he created. He had another big 3rd down play where he broke the pocket, made a big throw. And so he was, we knew going in how good of a football player he was. First time seeing him in person, he was every bit as good as advertised. Another good win for St. Aug. And again, our Holy Cross Tigers, they're fighting every single second of every game. We can definitely say that.
Yeah, and the score was 32-24 for those who didn't know, in favor of St. Aug. But Lance is spot on. It was, I think, when you look at the St. Aug team, you think flashy, you think big play wide receivers, but every big play seemed like it went through Coulon. It felt like it was his ability to run, his ability to break, contain, or force those linebackers to kind of have to hesitate. And they did try to spy him. They tried, and it didn't work. And Lance would say, I'd expect a draw play here, 3rd and 9 at the 20-yard line. He runs it for a touchdown. I mean, every situation you could say, they're going to run a quarterback draw here. With that extra blocker, it seemed to be really difficult to defend. Came away really impressed with the fight of Holy Cross, again, continuing to scrap and claw. A really great job by Jaden Smothers. A crazy interception at the end of the half. Big pick 6 for him that brought the Tigers back in the game. But ultimately, St. Aug's run game at the end, finding that run game late because the Tigers had to commit to stopping Coulon, opened up running lanes. And that was the big difference in the game.
Holy Cross actually led 10-0 in that football game.
Yeah.
Yep. How about East Ascension bouncing back from the loss last week to Turlings to beat Dutchtown 30-28? I mean, Briston Martinez, we talk about Bugs Bunny with some other players. This guy, he does it all. He caught a pass, 24-yard touchdown pass. That is a huge win. Dutchtown's now lost 2 out of their last 3 games. East Ascension, with that win, puts themselves in a position to go play for a district championship next week against Walker. Yeah. Again, this district is it's fun to follow.
They're tied with Denham Springs right now, and they have the win over Denham Springs.
Yeah.
So we were talking about that earlier. Technically, if you're looking by the head-to-head matchup, they technically have the lead in the district, but have to win out. But guys, I don't know if there's any offensive scheme that I love seeing more than what Coach Chaponche does with Briston Martinez. 6'6", 300 pounds. Dude is a tank. He's an offensive lineman who they put at tight end. He can catch passes. They put him at running back and just runs over people. It has been a lot of fun to watch what they do with him. It's so
well,
much fun.
just last week, he catches a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
He rushes for 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
He threw a pass. He punted, and he played nose guard.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
It's cool. Coach Mathern praised his, leadership and all, and the way he goes about his business. And so, I know I've been around too many of these great players that they kind of lose sight of their senior year a little bit. They start focusing on that next level, their LSU offer and stuff like that. And this guy clearly is not losing sight. He's going to leave a legacy. He's going to go down as one of the best players, one of the most memorable players East Ascension has ever had. It's really cool to see that.
Well, to your point, he's going to go. He's going to go play offensive line in college. And what's he doing? He's playing tight end, running back. He's passing the football, playing nose tackle. So, a guy that's trying to get the job done for his team. And look, we're focusing on him, but guys, this is a Dutchtown team. I think coming into the year, we would argue probably would be the favorite to win this district. And East Ascension is now, again, technically tied with Denham Springs for the district title. So this is a big win for them going on the road to play at Dutchtown. Not an easy thing to do, and this is a good Dutchtown football team.
Yeah, and again, it is a fun district to follow down there in Ascension Parish. Anything else that stands out to y'all? We can mention, it probably deserves a little more than a mention, but also on Thursday night, Slidell beat Chalmette in overtime. This was a game that I got to watch for a lot of it. It was a fun game to watch, back and forth. Chalmette goes on a drive late in the game, like a minute and 20 seconds left, scores a touchdown. They get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for a questionable excessive celebration. They have to kick a 35-yard extra point. They make it. They end up losing the game in overtime. But Slidell playing with their backup quarterback for the second straight week, and that was a coach's decision. Ricky Williams, their quarterback, who's thrown for, I think he was leading St. Tammany in passing yards up until last week. He hasn't played. He will be back this week coming up. But they've won back-to-back games with their backup quarterback. They go down to Chalmette to win a game in overtime. Breeze Wilson made one incredible run for, I think it was like a 60-yard run where he broke 2 or 3 tackles. This is a Chalmette team that if you look at the power ratings right now, they're at 25. And I don't know how much higher they'll be able to get, but I don't know how their bracket shakes out with who they would play, but that is a tough first-round draw for whoever has to play the Owls in round 1.
Who do the Owls have next?
They have Salmon.
That's be a tough.
Sounds tough. Yep,
Yeah,
sounds tough.
Yeah.
And so is that Chalmette?
They might
that's
have,
Chalmette's
they might
first
have to win.
district loss, right?
I believe so. And that might be a game that Chalmette has to win just to make sure they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, it could be. This.
Yeah, that was Chalmette's first. That was Chalmette's first loss. That was Chalmette's first loss since they played Holy Cross.
Why don't we keep? Well, let's keep the conversation here, right? Looking at power ratings. Well, when you look at Division I non-select, for your point, the 28. So 28 is North Natchitoches Central.
Yeah.
The team we talked about maybe being better than what people were thinking coming into the year. 5-4 on the year. They're in that 28 spot. Prairieville at 27. Covington at 26, Chalmette at 25, and Salmon is at 24. So both of those teams feel like they might need to win their game to get into the playoffs. And on the outside looking in, guys, listen to this. North Shore, which is a team that's been kind of winning some more games maybe than what we expected. Barb at 30. So Barb is one of a really impressive offense, and they're sitting at 30th. So, this is a very deep Division I non-select bracket.
Yeah, no, it is. And you talk about North Shore. North Shore has Slidell this week. I don't know if a loss for Slidell to North Shore would knock them all the way out, but a win for North Shore would definitely get them in. So some interesting matchups in terms of power ratings.
Slidell is at 22. I don't know if a loss would be enough to knock them out.
No, I don't think so.
Before we go, there's been no uniform talk. Slidell, we thought, had probably the best uniform.
Yes.
I've been thinking that too.
Yes.
Just clean. Very clean look. That's all
you mentioned when we were watching the game last night, he said before he waited, he didn't do it when the cameras on. He said, I love this look for Holy Cross. I think it's a little bit of a
Yeah.
homer on
My
that.
favorite look.
I
Yep.
feel
I
you
agree.
though.
I
feel
think
you,
that
but
is
they-
their best look.
is that Notre
Similar.
Dame look. It is.
Yep.
It
Yeah,
is very.
because they wore the
reminiscent.
gold pants, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Gold, white,
My-
gold. Yep.
I am not. I love them. I'm not a fan of the white pants. I think they
Yep,
need to
I'm
wear
with
the
you.
gold. They need
Yep.
to wear gold. But Slidell's uniforms on Thursday night looked very clean, very simple, good color contrast. I'm in, and that might just be the reason why they won the game in overtime. You know,
No baby blue. No baby blue. That's
no
why.
baby blue. Loyola Prep did not wear the baby blue. They wore all white too. I did see. So, and it didn't work out for them, but that's okay.
Their quarterback listen style show too. So
Yeah. So he knew.
he knew. Right.
No baby blue.
Yep.
No baby blue.
Smart.
He knew.
Good work.
That's it. All right. Well, that'll do it for tonight. We will get into not just week 10. I think Tuesday we can jump into more deep power rating as we start to get some stuff cleared up for that. But if you're still watching, we appreciate it. Like, follow, share, subscribe. Is that the line, Jason? There it is.
Yeah,
Follow,
all that
like,
good
share,
stuff.
subscribe. Go do it. We appreciate you all. We have a ton of fun doing this. We look forward to it each time we get to do it. So thanks for hanging with us and staying with us. And we will see you all on Tuesday night for a preview of the final week of the regular season, week 10. For Lance, Jason, I am Cass. Thank you for watching Talking Ball. We will see y'all on Tuesday night.